Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Normulator, and this is Humankind. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. So this is my first video on YouTube covering Humankind, and I thought it would be fitting that the first video will be a letter to Civilization 6 fans, since most of you who are familiar with my work will know me best from my exploits playing that very game. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been playing Humankind on Twitch every day, and I have been asked more times than I can count how this game compares to Civ 6. So my hope is that this video will serve as a full-length answer to anyone out there who is curious about Humankind, particularly if they are coming from a 4X background that includes the Sid Meier series. Now, this is by no means a full and comprehensive list of all the differences between Humankind and the Civilization series, but merely an attempt by yours truly to paint a picture of what you can expect from Amplitude Studios' latest creation. Let's get started. Okay, so before we jump into it, I do want to make a quick and shameless plug to ask you guys to make sure, if you enjoy the video, that you take a moment to hit that like button and drop a message down in the comment section. The YouTube algorithm really likes it when you do those two things in combination, and it makes a big difference to me. Thank you for that. Plus, I'd love to hear what types of Humankind content you guys would like to see in the future, since I have plans to produce plenty of it. And to make sure you don't miss any of that content, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Among the videos I've already planned are some tips and tricks videos to help you get started and improve your gameplay, as well as some more in-depth tutorials on how some of the basic mechanics of the game work to help ramp up your skills and help you enjoy Humankind even more. So stay tuned for that. Now, the Neolithic Era. Here we go. Right out of the gate, Amplitude has hit us with what is pretty revolutionary concept in the 4X world. For those of you familiar with the Civilization series, you'll know, of course, that you start out with the settler, and on turn one you look around, find the best place to plop down your capital, and you're off to the races. But with the Neolithic period, Humankind takes on a whole new life. You start off as a nomadic tribe in the Neolithic Era, and you have yourself a hunting party. And the goal of this era is to roam around, obviously, and you're going to explore the lands, find out what kind of places you could potentially settle in the future, find out where there's some resources for you available, and also you're going to find what you could call, I guess, goodie huts, if you're familiar with Civilization 6. And there's a couple different kinds of goodie huts that are going to help you expand and, I guess, promote your potential future in the game. One of the huts that you'll see, or I guess, what do they call them, I guess? Discoveries, whatever you want to call them, are these guys here. And you can see this little scientific symbol here. And when you run over those, you are going to get... I thought I had enough movement left. End turn. You are going to get a little bit of science and a little bit of cultural influence. So you've got this little science symbol, and you got this little star up here. You can see this purple star. That's your influence within the game. And once you get to 25 of those, you can, if you wish, move on to the Ancient Era. And so that's obviously very important that you can choose your first culture in the game and get started. Now, there's also a number of other things that you can do with your nomadic tribe. Oh, look at this. Speak of the devil. Click on here, and you can see we've gone up. Our food is now 10 out of 20, and we get to 20, we get a whole other hunting party to expand our world, if you will, or our ability to explore. And so as you move on, you'll have 2, and then you'll get 3 or 4, and then sometimes you might get 6 or 8 or even 10 of these hunting parties roaming around as scouts and learning more about the land and finding more of the goodies. So let's keep going by hitting end turn here. Now you will see there's a serious difference as well in the from Civilization and other 4X games that a lot of you have seen in the past, is the elevation. The elevation is actually a really interesting dynamic in this game. As you can see here, I can't actually go up here. Even though you might know there's something there, which we do, we can't go there. We need to continue on pathways where we can actually get to. So you can hear one elevation change is perfectly fine. We're going to find ourselves another curiosity collected. That's 3 science and 5 culture. We're now up to 10. And we can hit end turn. And you basically just have to roam around, and sometimes you'll find a ridge that's so long that it takes you sometimes 6 or 7 turns to come all the way down before you can come all the way back to get up one level higher. Pretty dynamic. It's pretty interesting stuff. Now, you also get occasionally little events like this. So in this case, we'll be able to choose whether we want plant. We must begin to harness the natural rhythms of the world, seek a better place. Minus 25% research cost on domestication. Or +2 food on city or outpost. I mean, this doesn't really matter for now. We'll just choose whichever one. But you get little events that pop up. Sometimes it gives you a new unit. Sometimes it gives you an event like that. In either case, here we go. We're going to collect some nuts in this case. And it's going to give us enough food for a whole new unit. Now, sometimes it'll only give you 5 food. Sometimes it might give you 15 or even 20. But in this case, we've gotten a couple of 10s. And now we have 2 units. And one thing to keep in mind is that if you get a new unit, the second unit actually has movement. So we can actually, in this turn, move them on by separating them. Now, you can keep them together. Sometimes it's actually not a bad idea to keep them together. Because sometimes if you have to fight some animals and stuff, you can get some extra food. Having a couple of them will make that fight a little bit easier. I generally like to spread them out, though, and go exploring a little bit more. We are, as you can see, fairly close to the top of the mountain of the map here, as far as this island is concerned, anywhere this continent. So what we can do is we can spread out. This guy can come back up in here, and then we can head back down south. Now you might be wondering, oh, do you really want to re-explore stuff you've actually seen before? Well, actually, you do, and the reason for that is because you can actually get those little inspiration thingies and stuff. They actually respawn in already explored lands, and in fact you might even make the case that they actually explore a little bit more often in already explored lands. So doubling back on yourself in this particular game is not a bad idea at all. Speaking of good things, we've got some more food here, so let's go get it. Plus we found some ambergris. I want to come this way for one turn. Oh, here, we're glad we did. I wanted to see the top of the land, and sure enough we found some more food. In this case we only got 5. Now, something else to keep in mind when you're exploring. Stepping on rivers ends all of your tile movement, no matter what you've done. No matter how much movement you may have left. So in this case, we only have 1 movement left, so we want to get back on the river for sure. But if you have 4 movement and you're standing here and you step on that river, it still takes all the movement you have left. So really important to know that as you're exploring.
This way.
And, oh, there we go. We're getting encroached upon by the very peaceful. I was gonna say Neanderthals. What the hell you call those things? Jeez Louise. Brain fart. Some more food, and look at this. Even more food down here. Respawned. Like that. Another 5. So unfortunately we got a little bit unlucky there. A couple of 5s, so we're still only at 10. But as you can see, we've got 10 of the influence up here. We still need to get to 25. We have located another discovery down here, which will allow us to get to... Ooh, there's 5 more food. Still getting a little bit unlucky on those. And we'll come over here. Next turn we'll be able to grab that. We'll get to 15 of the influence. We're heading back down south. This is actually a little bit on the slow side. By turn 8, we just kind of ran into a lot of dead ends and a lot of bad luck on the food, and it's actually a little on the slow side, but that's okay. We're not here to have a super strong game or do anything like that. We're just here to point out a few of the differences before we move on to the next point. Now, one other thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to this early age is I wanted to talk a little bit about how this game changes compared to Civilization in terms of settling. So, of course, we're going to have a lot more area to choose from, and we'll eventually be able to actually claim territory. And you can see here it actually pops up little information about the food and production, which is very much the same as you get in a Civilization game. And it can allow you to, choose where to settle. And you can also see that there's these little white dotted borders, and those indicate regions. And each region can only have 1 city, but you can place it anywhere within that region. So the way that cities develop is much different and really dynamic, and I actually enjoy it a lot. So that's something we can talk about as we move along in the video. So I want to quickly end this turn. I don't want this section to take long forever. There's some more culture for us like that. There's some more culture for us like that. Now we're up to 20. And some of them come with 1 science. Some of them have 2 or 3. Obviously, the more the better. Another event has come along here, and without reading all that, and we know that it gave us a refugee, if you will, but it's essentially a hunting party as well. And oh, go get the food. Go get the food. Nice. And we can come back up here. We have another one of those. We'll get to 25 soon. And like I said, we have, in general, this has been a little bit of bad luck that we've kind of experienced here. We haven't really found nearly as much as I typically am used to finding. We still didn't actually get back up in there, but I want to move down this way a bit more. Hey, there's another little inspiration as well. But yeah, sometimes you'll have only 4 or 5 scouts running around. Sometimes it'll take you 10 or 12 turns to get the required influence. Sometimes you'll get it in like 5 or 6 turns, or sometimes it'll take 15. But you will get it, and you can move on from there. As you can see here, we'll just pop in here. It's going to give us 5 more. It's going to unlock an Era Star, and it's going to allow us to choose from some of the cultures in the game. As you can see here, a couple of them have already been chosen. The Olmecs and the Harapins, which tend to be pretty popular amongst the AI. And there's all these different cultures. They all have different things. We're not going to get into the details on that. But once you get to 25, you can choose one of those and move on. Now, there is some advantage to actually waiting a little bit on that. This is another thing that I don't want to talk about a whole lot here. But there is some advantage to waiting a turn or two, especially if you're not picky about which culture you end up with. Because you can, if you have the opportunity to perhaps get 1 or 2 or 3 more of these scouts running around, having more of these scouts as the game goes on to the next era is actually extremely valuable. Plus, once you move on to the next era, you no longer have these kinds of goodie huts. They're a different kind of hut that you pick up, which sometimes leads to just a little bit of gold instead of science and culture and things like that. So if you're not picky, it is not all that big of a deal to go ahead and wait, maybe even 3 or 4 turns or something like that before choosing your culture. Now, for now, we'll just say remind later. We can choose whatever we wanted. But yeah, this is just kind of little things that you learn about the game. But like I said, now with the way this game's happened, let's say we were to choose our culture, go to next turn, and pick a civ or a culture, if you will. Now we could choose anywhere to put our city amongst all these areas. We've got units all over the place. In this case, not nearly as many, but sometimes you'd have 6 or 8 and have more land discovered than this. You could find some resources, find some really good yields to choose from, and you have much more choice about where that capital will be, where that capital will live, and how your civilization will expand as time goes on. So it's pretty interesting stuff, and that is the Neolithic Era. Okay, so next, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about city management and how districting works, how yields work, and, of course, how the citizens work, because there is a significant amount of difference between civilization games and previous 4X games and how Humankind does it. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is how the yields work in relation to the districts. So you can see here we actually have what is called a farmer's quarter, which is right adjacent to the city. And this particular farmer's quarter is yielding 12 food. But in addition, because there's a farmer's quarter there, all adjacent tiles that yield food will also be exploited for the city. So if, for instance, this particular district wasn't here, these tiles out here wouldn't be giving us the food yield. So this would actually not be exploited as 3 food, or this one as 7 food. The only thing that would be getting exploited, of course, would be the city center. The city center does yield all food and production on any adjacent tile where possible. So you can see here we're getting the 7 production up there on this tile. We're getting 8 and 2, and then this is, of course, 12 because it's even more because of the district. But these tiles out here would not be getting any of the food if it hadn't been for this. In addition, you can see that this tile is actually exploiting 6 production, and the reason for that is there's actually what's called a maker's quarter over here, which is kind of the equivalent of the industrial zone in Civilization game. And so what this does is allows you to obviously increase the production of that particular tile, but also exploit adjacent tiles for the production that they can yield. So we've got 4 up here on these two, another 4 on here, and then the 6 on this one. So because this particular tile has both a farmer's quarter and a maker's quarter on it, you are getting the yields for both. So in addition to that, what I wanted to talk about a little bit is how you improve tiles. So in previous, you're used to workers or builders in civilization games. You run around and you put lumber mills down, you put mines down and farms down and pastures and all that kind of thing. But in this game, instead of having workers and builders, things are much more simplified, and you simply complete what's called infrastructures within your cities. Some of them improve the districts themselves, like, for instance, the charcoal kiln. This particular one here, Stoneworks, improves particular tiles, so every mountain, stone, or rocky field in any tile that has any of those in this particular city will get +1 production. Same thing down here, you can provide more gold for gold tiles, more food for food tiles. You can see in here under the completed ones, you can provide here extra food on rivers, down here extra food on forests and woodlands, and it goes on and on. You can improve your science yields and stuff like that with different improvements as well. So that's how the improvements work within the game, is through infrastructure and not through builders or workers in any case. So now you might be wondering, okay, so if that's how you get the yields from the tiles, what are the citizens doing? Well, the citizens are actually up here at the top. And so instead of working individual tiles to get the yields, what they're actually doing is they're becoming essentially specialists. And in this case, specialists are very good. Population's great because you can get more of the things, if you will. So we've got food specialists in here, maximum of 9. We're working them. We're getting 10 food for every one of those. Production, gold, and then the output of science. And you can see at the top the total sum that we're getting from this city. In addition, you can also improve the output. As you can see here for scientists, we have the House of Scribes improve infrastructure. We've got the manuscript artillery. We've got luxury resources and other things that are making our scientists more valuable. So that is, that's just how that works as far as improving yields. The other thing I wanted to quickly mention, that's essentially how the citizens work, the districts work, things like that. And to give you another quick example here is I wanted to show you a little tile over here. Now this tile over here has 3 science on it, as you can see, but we're not exploiting that science right now because you have to have a research order next to it. So in this case, if we were to go into this city, which is back here, and select the research lab, if we were to put this over top of this, you can actually see as you zoom in that this tile up north there is going from 0 to 3 science yield. Pretty simple. But you can also see that when you put this down, you're going to lose 4 production. Because when you put a research lab down, the 4 production that tile would normally get from being exploited from the industrial zone here, the maker's quarter here, is giving you 4 production here. You're going to lose the production from that tile, or you'd lose any food or whatever else you get from that tile, in order to place this down. But once you place it down, you'll start to get the 3 yield from this science, in addition to the science that the research quarter will give you anyway. And that's the basic idea behind how citizens work, how the districting works, and how the yields are acquired from adjacent tiles. Okay, the next thing I'd like to talk to you guys about is how Amplitude Studios has revolutionized 4X combat in Humankind. Now, the first thing that you might take a look at and see is, oh my god, death stacks are back. Well, not exactly. For those of you familiar, of course, with civilization games from the past, there was essentially the death stack. You could put as many units as you wanted on a single tile, and they could just go around and bop the enemy, 30 units to 4 and just delete them. In this case, there is a limit. You can have 3 or 4, up to 5, eventually 6, and eventually 7. Based on technology, you can increase the amount that you can have on one stack. And as you move them around, you can use those units cohesively in an attack as you step in and create a battlefield. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just take a quick look as we show an infiltration of this city as we try to take this thing down, and how you might go about taking it down. Now, my tile movement, or the movement of my units might not be completely perfectly ideal. So take it easy on me. I'm just I just want to show you a little bit about what you can do. So we're gonna move these guys up here to stand next to the city here. And I'm gonna move these guys in here, and I'll move these guys to a flanking position here, like that. And then these guys, I think I'm gonna move there. Now what you can do is, it's going to create a battlefield. So if I click on this unit and I hover over this, you're going to see it's giving us a preview of the potential odds of winning. But you can also see there's a little blue shaded area there to the south. And then up north you can see the slightly faded orange kind of color. That's where the other guys will be able to position as the battle begins. But in addition to that, if you scroll out here, you're going to see a kind of a grayed out box all the way around kind of the screen here. And that's essentially what's created a battlefield. And that's where you're going to actually be able to fight this battle of it in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click this. And you're going to see the screen pop up. And now we've got the option. We could actually maintain the siege right here. And then we can actually bring in, over time, we can bring in trebuchets or other siege weapons that are available to you technologically speaking. And so if I were to wait a turn, as you can see here, I can actually bring in a trebuchet. If I wait another turn on top of that, I could potentially bring in another trebuchet. And over time, the garrison, or the draftees, if you will, of the Palisades, they would eventually actually drop out. So if you wanted to hold this long enough, potentially, you could have their units to start to die out, because you can imagine a city under siege. That would happen. Now in this case, we're not going to bother with that. We've got enough here. We're just going to go ahead and assault. And you can have to choose. You can instant resolution, which sometimes makes some bad decisions. So unless you're trying to go really fast, I wouldn't suggest it. You could retreat if you wanted, but why would you have clicked the button otherwise? I guess sometimes if you click the button and then you find out there's more guys there than you thought, you may want to retreat. So that's a possibility. We're going to do a manual battle. I'm going to walk you through real quickly how this works. Now, in this case, I had all of those units close enough that it's allowing me to use them all in the adjacent battle immediately. Now, there's also a technology you can acquire that we do already have that allows you to do reinforcements. And you can actually see up here in the corner, there's a reinforcement section. And so if I had moved all the guys up next to the border, maybe I should have done that for, I guess, educational purposes. But if there was a guy standing back here, not next to the city, then it wouldn't have been brought in immediately to be placed. And then you can, in the next stage of the combat, after you've placed your units and you're deployed them, you can bring them in the reinforcement phase and have them brought in. Now, in this case, I'm just going to quickly move some units around, and I don't want to worry too much about exactly who's where, because it'd take me 5 minutes just to make sure I'm doing it. I want horses on the flanks. I want my ranged units, particularly my archers, who have the ability to shoot without line of sight, to be in a position to take shots early on. We'll cover that flank. And I'm just going to go ahead and let this go. Now, you are going to see there are, I think I've used some, I have this guy here. This is a crossbowman, this guy right here. He actually needs line of sight. He can't shoot over units. He can't shoot past any obstacles. He needs to have direct line of sight at a unit in order to hit it. Whereas bowmen, whether they call them archers or longbowmen or whatever you're going to call them, they can actually shoot over the top. They don't require line of sight, which is actually fantastic. So we've got some of them in here. They're not as powerful as crossbowmen, but crossbows are essentially, the way they have it set up right now, is kind of glitchy and doesn't work out all that great. Not the best. Now I'm going to say end deployment, and so now you get into the phase of attack. And in this case, there's 3 rounds per turn that you can do attacks on, okay? So in this case, you can see here they got their units. I can start shooting them with my archers up above. We can focus on a particular unit, damage it as much as possible. Shoot it down like that. We could potentially flank with the horse. Now, the thing to keep in mind, too, about horse units, any horse-mounted unit cannot actually penetrate into the city because it doesn't have the ability. It has to be a melee-type unit, okay? So you can use these guys to flank around and cover the sides and make sure that, for instance, you could go like this, and you can, come into the side like this, and you could just, figure out exactly how you wanted to do this, but you can kind of surround them and create some different combat bonuses. Now, in this case, I have this guy here, and you can see here, I'm actually going to be able to shoot because I have line of sight in this crossbowman here. And because I have 3 friendly units available, I'm going to get +3 combat strength. It's not going to be a major dealing of damage, but it's okay. Now, something to keep in mind here, though, is that you don't want to leave the crossbowman exposed because he's going to get hit. So you can move this guy in here, and he'll actually protect the crossbowman. But next turn, he won't be able to shoot past him, so you'd have to do some sort of other decision-making process there on how to do that. In this case, they're getting a lot of strength from being fortified and stuff like that. But you can take a couple shots here and start to wear them down. I'm not going to bore you with taking this whole thing all the way out to its fruition, but you can see how this works, right? Is you can end up with battles where you've got like 10 versus 10 or 15 versus 15 units. You can bring in reinforcements. The battlefield will get bigger and bigger as the turns go on. Like I said, you'll go back and forth. So if I were to hit end round, now it's their turn. So this is round 1. They're going to be able to hit back in any way they want. And then, wait, what? There we go. Yeah, so they're actually bringing reinforcements in from behind. You can see their units moving in here now. So we're actually getting reinforcements brought in. These are actually horse archer units, which are pretty pog. And so they'll actually, because they're bringing reinforcements, it's actually making it a little bit tighter battle as we go along here. And so once they've attacked, then it goes to round 2. Then it'll be my turn to attack again. They'll retaliate. I'll attack again, retaliate, and that'll be the end of the battle for this one particular turn. So no matter what happens, the battle can continue to the next turn and the turn after that, and so on. So you can see the battle taking place here. Once they've finished all their moves, it'd be my turn again to make attacks. Rivers, very important to not standing on rivers too much. I wasn't expecting to bring this many units in, but it's actually become quite the interesting battle to take place there. But this is how we've basically seen the revolutionizing of combat in 4X games, is inserting units into a battle and having them, use the terrain, the elevation, and be able to spread out and do things. And it's actually quite fantastic. The combat system, definitely one of the best improvements that you'll see in Humankind over previous 4X games. Okay, folks, so I've got a couple more things real quick that I want to talk to you about when it comes to the Humankind evolution in the 4X genre, and in particular in comparison to Civilization. Now, in previous games, when it came to late game settles and basically creating cities later in the game, it became very difficult in the Civilization series, in particular Civilization 6, to make it useful. You got to a point in the game where there's no point in making a settler and settling a new city, because by the time you ramped it up and got population in that city and built some really expensive districts that scaled over time and improved the tiles and stuff, it just took forever for you to actually get any return on investment for that really expensive settler later in the game. In this game, however, Humankind has taken it to a whole new level, which is extremely important because there is a city cap throughout the game that goes up over time as you get new technologies. So without that, of course, you're not able to just go ahead and settle 8 or 10 cities really fast. You have to kind of do it progressively, or else you get a really big penalty to your influence. So this is actually a really cool system they set up. First of all, of course, you can set down as many outposts as you want. And you can see in this region here, we've already set up 4 of them. And most of these guys actually have 3 or 4 population in them. So when we set up a city, they're actually going to get a little bit of an advantage because they're going to have that population ahead of time. Plus, once you start a city, you can quickly attach some outposts in order to get that city working that many more tiles quickly and getting those yields up really fast. And so, that's, it gives you some acceleration. But that's not even the real big revolutionary step that they took with at Amplitude. Amplitude has introduced the concept of the colony setup. So let me show you real quickly here. As you scroll through here, this is the tech tree. At feudalism in the medieval era, you can see here what's called the colony model. And so what it does is it actually makes it so if you create a city after you've gotten this tech, then that city is going to get 3 population to start, 140 production to start, and all infrastructure from the first 2 eras, which includes things like the library and the theater. And down here you have the artisan workshop. So all things that give you more science, more culture, more production, more food. All of those infrastructure already come for free. But it gets even better. Oops, I didn't mean to leave that. After you get feudalism, you can come along here and get 3 mass ship, which gives you the colony plan, which gives you 3 population, even more production, and 3 eras worth of infrastructure. And finally, if you accelerate all the way through to the steam engine, you get what's called the colony blueprint. And the colony blueprint is fantastic. Start with 4 population, 280 production, and all infrastructure from the first 4 eras, which is absolutely insane. It gives you so much stuff. I'm not even going to bother showing you in here. I'm just going to show you in the game. So I'm going to come down here, and as an example, I'm just going to come into this city right here. I've got the influence to do it. I'm going to turn this into a city, and just like that, it's actually 7 pop, because this outpost already had 3 population, and we added 4 from the ability. That's 7 population. And in addition to all that, let me show you, if you go in here to the infrastructure under completed, there's 42 infrastructure that we get for free right out of the gate. All of the food producing stuff, production on river, production for farmers, all that stuff, all of these different industrial things, infrastructure that you get for free, all yours. It's fantastic. You get look at all these science. All of these things are just improving your science. So immediately you have a city, if you click on here, 77 science a turn. You know, I mean, you can move these around. Over 100 gold, over 100 production, almost 78 food. And like I said, you can just attach stuff, right? Attach this. That's even more population. You know, now we're up to, what, we've got 11 population in here now. And even more food per turn, 150 plus production. You know, you can move these around, 160 production, 156 food, over 100 science. Plus, you know, you can very quickly start making really effective districts. 1 turn that. You can get your unique district up here, bunch of production and gold there. You know, you can build these all over the place. And it's just so much value. I can get enough influence next turn. I can add another one of these outposts in here for 634. And with just, you know, the snap of the fingers, and you've got effective cities that can really quickly ramp up and improve your late game because of the implementation of such a fantastic mechanic. All right, 4X fans and Civilization fans in particular, it's almost time to wrap this thing up. I wanted to show you guys one more thing that I think you're going to find very interesting when it comes to the concept of yields, and in particular, how big they get. We saw this city earlier in the video, of course, when it was much younger. This is actually turn 196. It's the turn after I got a science victory. Well, I guess a fame victory after completing the science technology tree. If you go in here to the technology tree, you can see that everything's done. And we came away with over 13,000 fame, close to double that of the second place individual. And we went flying through it. Let me show you what I mean by big yields. Let me zoom in here and show you. As you can see, we've littered the lands with districts. In particular, this is a research corridor in here. And we've got yields of in excess of 100 on this particular district. 40 and 50 plus science, 60 plus, 110 here. Really, really big science yields in here. Production as well, you can see here. We've got a nice little valley of industrial zones, or makers' quarters, if you will. And they're all popping off at close to 40 or more production per turn. Really fantastic stuff. Just more and more of the science. You can see all the big science yields in here. All the way out here. More science districts over here. This is where we noticed earlier we had some research labs that we're going to build. All of these guys doing, you know, 83 a pop here, 49, 49, 57. So much science. So much production and industry down in here in this city. Just to give you an idea, when you look at the cities, look at this. This city here, 1,160 production. You think that's a lot. About 2,162 in here. 1817. Not to mention, look at the science we're pulling off. Excess of 3,000 science a turn in there. Over 5,400 in the capital as we push towards 2,000 production. Absolutely insane yields in the late game. And things do get more expensive, mind you. Like you can see in here in this city, we're actually doing the university. And if you look down there at the bottom, 1,905 is the cost in production. Thankfully, we're going to be able to one-turn it because of our industry that we've yielded. Now, not always going to be able to do this much yields. You might have a city late game that's got 700 or 800 production, and it would take 3 or 4 turns to do the university, but kind of compares. There's just really, when you think about it, being able to build so many copies of a unique district, or not, they're not unique, obviously, of particular districts in a city allows so much scaling for like proximities. You can see up here so many research labs just creating so much proximity and adjacency bonuses that you're just, you know, the stats are just popping off, right? And the numbers just get absolutely insane. Production wise, you're generating tons of food, science, gold. Late game, this thing just explodes and accelerates. Now, one final thing real quick, and I'm going to let you get out of here. The concept of shared projects. Okay, so you can do like religious districts, you can do shared projects of. There's other things like this, but this is a wonder in particular that you can see here we're doing, and it's cost 33,000 plus production. So it's going to take 9 turns on the capital. But quickly, if I were to go in here, you actually click on this, and you can just add in other cities. 6 turns, 5 turns, 4 turns, 3 turns. You can add in all of these cities, and it's going to come out with 3 turns. If we focus production in every city, maybe we could get it to 2. But you just saw the concept of shared production. Okay, so you had a wonder that was going to take like 9 turns in the capital with crazy amount of production. And then, oh, you know what? Let's just have every city work on this, and we'll pound that out in 3 turns instead. Really cool concept. One last little tidbit of information I want to show you guys that's really, really neat. I'm going to let you go, folks. Thank you so much. It's been a great time making this video. It's been a great time playing this game. We're going to continue to produce all kinds of Humankind content. Let me know in the comment section down below what you want to see. Don't forget to hit that like button. You've made it all the way to the end. You must be enjoying yourself. Hit that up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And we're going to see you next time, folks. Bye-bye.